The most common question I get as a consultant is, what's the next step? What do I do next? The clients lay out their KPIs, they lay out their business case, they lay out what best practices that they have started to implement and the obstacles that they encountered, whether they be, we don't have any money, problems like we're short people, we don't have enough planners, we don't have we don't have enough people to have a kidder on day shift. But whether it's sponsorship, the plant manager does not have an equipment background and does not sponsor reliability. It's just not on board. The lead team's not on board. Business challenges, you're going through business cycles, ups and downs, and you're pausing your reliability program. Then you're starting it up. Then everybody's yelling and pointing at each other, blaming. Production's got to ramp up, and there's no time for outages. I've heard all these things in my years, and they all come back to this question: is what's the next step? Often these people, they're a little bit desperate when they call me. They're frustrated. Am I doing something wrong? Best practices should be working. Makes sense in the seminar and the textbook. Am I doing something wrong? Is this as good as it gets? Are best practices overrated? Is it only good in theory and in classroom? Joe, what's the next step? Hey, this is Joe Kuhn of Lean-Driven Reliability, bridging the gap between best practices that you should be doing, just can't quite figure out how to get it done in your culture. Okay, I'm going to answer this question with a real case study. Real case study here. I'm going to change the names. I'm going to change the products. I'm going to simplify a little bit, just to keep this a relatively short video, and all those other things just to protect the client. But the meat of this is 100% true. Okay, so Acme Industries, it's a 250-person manufacturing plant that I went to. 100 years of operation. They've been in operation for a long, long time through many business cycles. Their product, they make camping gear, is 90% of what they make, like tents, sleeping bags, tarps, enclosures, backpacks, whether hiking backpacks, and actually school backpacks as a lower end product they make. So the machinery is a lot of sewing machines. There's just a lot of fabric that they're making these products out of. 75 sewing machines, 6 pattern cutting machines, cutting out the patterns. 6 radio frequency welders, where they're using radio frequency RF to weld together a couple fabrics. 10 rivet machines in a small machine shop. They also have air compressors, power distribution, HVAC, all the building and ground stuff, lighting that you have at a plant. But basically, a pretty simple operation. Work is very manual except for the pattern cutting machines, which is fully automatic. Fully automatic, fairly new piece of equipment. They work 10 shifts a week, Monday through Friday, days and afternoons. The maintenance crew, 8 multi-craft individual, meaning they do every person is skilled to do all the crafts, whether it's mechanical, electrical, or building maintenance kind of work. They ranged in experience from 1 to 38 years, leaning heavily towards the plus 20 years. But they did have a new person. They had a working team leader. The maintenance manager is also the EH&S manager, so it's spread kind of thin. A lot of things going on, especially in times of COVID. 100% reactive maintenance, folks. 100%. They just fix it when it's broken. Production calls, we fix. TPM is performed, and there's audit sheets out at the equipment, where when I say TPM, what they were doing was operator care. Simple operator maintenance activities done by the operator. No KPIs exist. Everyone was busy, but everyone was a little frustrated with the situation of the reliability of the assets. So jumping to the business case, and this was all in my meeting with the lead team, the business case. 15% volume is out there. It's available if we can get it. The management team did not want to add a third shift, did not want to add overtime. They had some layoffs a few years back, and this is a family-owned business, and they just didn't like doing that. They'd rather work a little bit of overtime, and they'd rather work on efficiency. And the VP that really was my sponsor was heavily invested and open to innovation and new ways of manufacturing. So I tremendous respect for the VP of manufacturing. The estimates for the impact of quality rework, equipment downtime was worth about $1.2 million annually, and that was a conservative estimate. So you're looking at $100,000 a month at this facility. The top frustration coming through from productions, as I said earlier, was the reliability of the machine that leads to these quality defects, the downtime, the missed opportunities, and missed deadlines, and volume, not being able to expand the volume when you know it's there. So what would you do? Okay, I'm asking you, what would you do with this situation? You know, a couple things that are best practices. Hey, let's train everybody on reliability. What's it about? You know, what are the processes you need to have in place? What are the foundations of a reliability program? You could hire an engineering firm to come in and create equipment maintenance plans. Let's draft something up. You can begin with the OEM, you know, and you know, just come up with a best practice. Maybe do some FMEA work on each asset and each asset type. You know, does seem to be some overlap. And you know, 75 sewing machines, you could do it FMEA once and multiply by 75. Maybe you need to hire a planner, you know, so you can start doing some PMs and some scheduled work, get everybody to be a little bit more efficient and start checking off these PMs. Maybe you need to hire some craftsmen. You know, everyone's busy executing, you know, the emergency work. You can't say, I want you to do this plus planned jobs. So that doesn't look like it's going to work. You know, do you do the PMs on overtime? Do you change the shifts that maintenance is working? Maybe make them all work midnight shift and do your PMs. You know, you hire some, you know, 3 or 4 people, put them on midnight shift to do the PMs while the equipment is down. Do you hire a reliability engineer to do this FMEA work to problem solve the challenges that are coming at you? Do you do all of the above or half of them? You know, what do you do? What would you do? That seems to be the question I'm getting. So from the above information, you know, and based on your experience and your opinion and collective wisdom, you can come up with a plan for how to improve this plan. No problem. This is what most people attempt. You front load the cost. You know, you hire people, hire planners, hire consulting firms to come in and develop the equipment maintenance plans. You front load. You can spend $700 or several $100,000 getting the foundation in place, and then you backload the results. The results come 2-3 years down the road. It takes time. That's what most people do. Unfortunately, what is neglected in this is the 800-pound gorilla standing at the gate called your current culture. All these best practices have to overcome that first, and that's where 95% of people fail. And that's where I get a phone call or I get asked a question. What would you do? What's the next step? Okay? So let's add overwhelming observation to our data set. Try to understand current state a little bit more. So here's some new facts from 5 9-hour days of observation. 5 days, 9 hours straight, observing work crews, observing processes, observing leadership and where they spend their time, just absorbing reality at the plant in addition to the background information that was provided by management. Okay? Number 1, 55% of the failures were due to operator errors and misuse of the equipment. 55%. 25% of failures were due to components wearing out, where a good PM could help, right? Failures often began to show themselves 2 to 3 days before functional failure. So the equipment just was acting a little finicky, not quite operating right, but they were willing to use it 2 to 3 days in advance. Number 4, equipment was highly modified to fit the need. I'm telling you, you can't go back to the OEM. The sewing machines, as an example, were enormously over modified and things stiffened and arms lengthened. They hardly recognizable from where they were bought. They were, engineered by great maintenance teams of the past. Remember I said this place has been in operation for 100 years. The craftsmen, very skilled, understood the equipment, got really good at emergency work, very good at it. But they were passive aggressive towards each other. Each one had their little ways of doing things, how to set things, how to set the timing, for example, on a sewing machine. They had different techniques for doing this. And it caused a problem when I would respond to emergency call on machine number 2, and then somebody else would respond to machine number 2 tomorrow for the same issue, and we would fix it different ways and tune it different ways. So there were some problems and some finger pointing and some just, some fights, not physical fights, but just definitely tension, passive aggressive tension towards each other. The craftsmen all had ideas to improve. I spent at least a half day with each one of them, but they wanted to improve, but they didn't have a system to improve. They didn't have an outlet to put their energy to improve. Production was upset because almost nothing was being done. Every one of them that I talked to said, why aren't we doing PMs? Why aren't we doing PMs? Why aren't we doing PMs? I heard that from everybody. TPM, operator care, operator minor maintenance, was a sheet of paper with check marks on it. My audit, I'm telling you, near zero compliance. There was a sheet next to every piece of equipment, and when I watched and when I inquired about how that's used, it wasn't worth the paper. It was not being done, and management thought it was. And I'm telling you, I zero examples. I probably had 10 observations and 0 examples where it was being used in any positive manner. Production leaders, also observed them to see their impact, and they actually were spending 0 time on improvement. They were consumed in things. And for example, the days I was observing them, they spent at least an hour a shift on attendance issues, following up with employees and documenting, having conversations. It was just, they were being overwhelmed by paperwork. They were talented people, but just didn't have time in the day to work on improvement. Another thing, there was 100% turnover of production employees. That's interesting. Ties into some of the things earlier, like 55% of the trouble calls, emergency work, was operator error. So 100% turnover in a year. Overall culture, very positive people. Loved working with them. They were open to change. They're productive. They wanted to do a good job. It wasn't us versus the company. It was, we want to get better. We want to get better. We just don't know how. They kind of had a program of the month culture. Great ideas come up. People would implement things. Think of the TPM. It was great. Then all of a sudden, it just died off. So, hey, there you are with new information from current state. So I worked with the lead team, and here's the actions we decided to take. These are the actual actions we took, not just hypothetical. These are actual actions. Okay, we created 5 equipment process leaders. We called them EPLs. And they were for 5 different kinds of equipment. The 4 production ones, okay, remember the sewing machines, the rivet machines, the RF welders. There's one other one in there, I can't remember it offhand while I'm making this video. But then we had a kind of a catch-all category of the air compressors, the high voltage equipment, really building and grounds, HVAC, all those other issues that we need to keep in good operating order. So these EPLs were going to create and own the EMP, the Equipment Maintenance Plan, with input from the rest of the team. They're going to execute the PMs, okay? So if I'm the EPL on sewing machines, here's specifically what I was going to do. I was going to create I was going to go to the machine, start with my experience, start with the OEM, what are you supposed to do, and create the equipment maintenance plan. What PMs did I want to do? 1 week a month, I would shift my schedule. My normal work schedule is 7 to 3. I'm going to come in at 5 and work till 1, and from 5 to 7, I'm going to execute those PMs that need to be done on those machines. We figured we can get the vast majority, at least 80% done during those time periods. May need to work a little bit of overtime at the beginning, but very small. So the EPLs are going to create and execute the PMs. Each EPL also was going to put together a training package for the new hires. This program, this company, Acme, had a great onboarding program for the new hires. They had some training, they had hands-on training. Why not add how equipment fails, how you're supposed to, what problems, exist with these machines, how to fix them, and when to call the maintenance people. The EPLs, these mechanics and electricians, train them, how it fails, certify competence, okay? And then show them why these TPM tasks are needed and why. Why. Each EPL is to audit the TPM process, not the supervisors. So we've really divided up the equipment, gave ownership to people, gave them a platform to make improvements, right? You understand here? Also, we implemented a Tpm tagging process where each shift, the operators would fill out a tag with anything that was didn't act quite right on their equipment. Remember, I said that usually 2 to 3 days ahead of time, the equipment started to act a little funky. Well, got this tagging system in process, and once a shift, the EPL would walk around and pick those up, so we now have up to 48 hours of notice of a problem, okay? So isn't that cool? The EPLs, as far as communication and reporting, they started a daily management meeting where each EPL would stand up and talk about the emergency work in the last 24 hours, what PMs have been completed, what TPM cards were in, and any help they needed in the next 24 hours to hit the standard. Monthly, the EPLs met with the plant lead team to talk about KPIs, trends, impacts, success, failures, and help. The EPLs were to start contributing to a newsletter. The manager was going to own this, but they were going to make contributions to a newsletter to be posted up. And the EPLs were going to meet in the pre-shift meeting with all the production crews once a month to talk about issues going on in their equipment, trends, and improvements that they're making. So let's get everybody part of this reliability effort. The EPLs created and owned the reliability program. Okay, think about how this differs from the TPM process that I talked about that was paper only. Based on observation, the observation that I made with their leadership, we're expecting 80% of the failures to be impacted by this. 80%. Remember operator error. Remember they're manifesting themselves where it's a wear out, so PMs can fix. And then also their problems are manifesting themselves often 2 to 3 days in advance. You combine that all up, you're actually over 80%. So very excited about this. I conducted some reliability best practice training with everybody, with the leadership, with the maintenance people, with operations, to let everybody know what we're doing, really to connect the dots, okay? Now you have a platform for improvement. You have a single point of accountability in the EPLs. You have these meetings and communication sessions to feed in, and these people are helping train new people. You're getting PMs done. You have a go-to person and a system to make improvement. And this was found through observation. Acme did actually have a homegrown CMMS system. It wasn't bad, but they were only using it to track their emergency work. Pre-intervention, they were just, operator would turn in a work order and they would, come fix it. But we had to modify that to start using the PM feature and to start using the reporting feature of that software. It actually was not that bad. Notice how the actions changed with observation. Completely changed. They're simple, impactful, engaging, sustainable, and rooted in best practices. They build momentum for future improvements. Folks, this was almost free. These actions were almost free except for coaching by me. I worked with them for 3 months, 1 week a month for 3 months. And we laid out this plan. And I've worked with them, a couple phone calls a month. I didn't charge for that. A couple emails a month. I didn't charge for that. But getting them started on their path towards, 10% planned work, 20% planned work, 30% planned work, and capturing this $1.2 million opportunity. So folks, keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming at me. I respond to 100% of them. Send me an email, comments, whatever you do. But if you ask me, what the next step is. What do I do next? I'm trying all this stuff and it's not working for me. What's your guidance on what the next step is? I'm telling you, what you are advertising and to me, highlighting to me, is you have not performed chalk circle observation, because once you do chalk circle observation, simple actions become obvious, and they're completely different than what you had just based off your experience and best practices. Hey folks, begin your journey. This stuff isn't that hard. If I can help you out in any way, send me a message, send me a comment, send me an email. You got a lot of ways to contact me. Go to my website. Okay, this is Joe out.